Guys, it's your girl T, and we have this case that's coming from Arizona. I think we need to give Arizona a name. I know a lot of folks are trying to figure it out in our last video. I think one of the most popular names was Atrocious Ass Arizona. The other one was Asshole Arizona. So I think we might go with Atrocious Ass Arizona because this whole situation is just atrocious. So what's going on is that we have this young man. He's 22 years old. His name is Nick Olivas. And when he was 14, he had sex with a 20-year-old woman, okay? So what happened is that during that night, the woman got pregnant. He didn't know anything about it. She just kind of disappeared and left the scene. And 8 years later, he's now being hit with a child support statement saying that he needs to pay for this child. Nick is saying that he was raped and he shouldn't have to pay for this child. Now, they initially sent him the notice 2 years ago, and I believe at that point in time, he should have acted on it. He should have took the DNA testing seriously, and then he should have went down there and filed statutory rape charges on this woman, but he chose to ignore it, and now they're garnishing his wages. They're forcing him to pay child support for a child that was conceived during statutory rape, and he feels like he shouldn't have to pay for this child. Go ahead and check out this news clip, and I will come back with the rest of my commentary.
Richard Rellis, victim of statutory rape, finds out years later that he fathered a child. The state is asking him to pay child support for that kid he just found out about. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's just a bad idea. I mean, there's under no circumstances should the victim of any crime ever be forced to pay the person who perpetrated the crime against him. In this situation, that's exactly what's occurring. I understand the state's point of view. If a woman or somebody else applies for state assistance, the first thing they go to do is to check and see, well, is there someone in your life who should be contributing to your life so that we don't have to pay so much. I get that part of it. And that works fine with deadbeat dads and other people like that. But in this situation, I mean, come on, he was a 14-year-old boy. This should never be a situation.
That somehow he's not in the deadbeat category. He didn't know.
This is a glitch in the law that really should be corrected. Under no circumstances should somebody who is underage and didn't even know that this had occurred then be held accountable years later for what was going on.
And of course, now he wants contact with the child. He would like to see this kid and be a true father.
I hope that works out, but it's going to be such a financial burden on him. It's really unfortunate.
All right, so you guys just checked out the news clip, and I just find this whole situation appalling. You know, what I find funny is that this woman is an adult. She was 20 years old, and she took advantage of a 14 to 15-year-old boy, okay? And she knew what she was doing, because if this was a cool thing, if this was a relationship, if this was something that everybody knew about and it was all good, she would not have waited 8 years to name him as a father. She would have been like, you know what, I got pregnant on that night with my boyfriend. Yes, he was younger than me. She knew what she was doing was wrong, and that's why she hid it. And the only reason that this is coming to light is because a bitch tried to get on welfare. And you know, if you try and get on welfare or any type of public assistance, they're automatically going to go after the father. So that's when they went after him. You know, my thing is, women can't have it both ways. Okay, we can't sit here and want to coddle the women and say that rape is wrong, but only when it affects women. But when it affects young boys or young men, all of a sudden we want to act like they're, you know, like somehow they're responsible, like it's okay. Even if this young man was bragging about fucking this 20-year-old, even if he thought that he was going to get some type of pat on the back, some type of stripes, because you have a lot of young dudes who don't look at stuff like that as rape or molestation when they're, you know, that age, when they're 14. They just look at it like, you know what, I'm banging out this older chick, it's all good. It's not until they realize as they get older, like, nah, that was molestation. That was, you know, that was statutory rape. Because sometimes you don't look at things that way when you're still a child. It's not until you get older and your mind fully develops and you realize how wrong that situation was. And this is that situation. And people, you know, I have females online. I've seen females online telling me, oh, he probably liked it. He's probably bragging to his homeboys, and now he just doesn't want to pay child support. He's a deadbeat. And it's like, are you guys hearing yourselves? Could you imagine this country forcing women to have to pay for their rapists' medical bills? You know, to have to raise a child, you know, formed or conceived in rape. A lot of women, once they have a child that's conceived and raped, a lot of women are told by doctors to have abortions. Some women choose to keep their children and raise them. I know a dude who was a raped child and his mother raised them, but it was a really fucked up relationship because every time she looked at her son, she saw her rapist and she would, you know, physically abuse him. He went through a lot of shit growing up. But with that being said, there are no laws that would force women to have to take care of a rape child. Either they can have an abortion, give the child up for adoption, or choose to raise it. You know what I'm saying? But how dare they try and force this man to take care of a child that was conceived in rape? Now, if he has to pay child support, because they're saying that there was another case back in 1997 where a 13-year-old got like a 26-year-old pregnant, and it was a rape situation where he was clearly being molested, and the state still forced him to pay for that child. So I think it's very sickening that there's a double standard, that we're forcing men who are victims of statutory rape to pay for rape children. You know, if the woman chose to, go on with the pregnancy and keep the child, that's on that woman. Then she should be forced to take care of the child by herself. He should have that option if he wants to be in that child's life, or if he wants to take care of that child. He should have that option. But being that they're forcing him to pay child support and they're garnishing his wages, then he should at least have the right to see that child and form a relationship. And if I were him, I would fight for full custody. If you had to pay for that child anyways, you might as well file for full custody of that child. And I would press charges on that woman and send her ass to jail. She should be locked up. She should have to register as a sex offender. If this was a man, it'd be the same thing. We should not make excuses and things like that because it's a woman. It's not okay and it's not right. So anyways, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this entire disturbing situation that's coming from Atrocious ass Arizona. All right. Deuces.